We really appreciate the unibody aluminum of the HTC One M8 and the unique look and feel it gives the device. But in its quest to broaden its device offerings, and also prove it's still not a one-trick pony, HTC is offering another choice. Meet the One E8, a high-end Android smartphone made of polycarbonate and packing a few added features for the global market. We'll have a full review up shortly, but for now, let's take a look at the differences between these flagships. This is Pocket Now. I'm Michael Fisher, and this is HTC One E8 versus HTC One M8. This is one of those comparisons that's almost entirely aesthetic, because HTC has done a pretty good job at maintaining feature parity between these smartphones. The only significant changes on the spec sheet are band support differences for various markets, dual SIM support in some E8 models, and the reduction in onboard storage and removal of the IR transmitter on the E8. That leaves out the biggest hardware difference, the camera, but we'll get to that in a second. Looks may not be everything, but here, they're the most obvious difference between these phones. From the front, everything looks about the same here, from the boom sound speakers to the 5-inch Full HD displays to the 5-megapixel wide-angle selfie cameras. But move around to the sides and let the metal versus plastic wars begin. The E8 is slightly thicker and less massive than the M8, and while we love the color palette of our electric crimson review device, its glossy finish definitely lends it a more toy-like feel than its aluminum counterpart. It accentuates fingerprints and smudges much more readily, and generally feels cheaper than the M8, despite its unibody polycarbonate construction. Fortunately, HTC offers different colors with matte finishes as well, so you do have a choice here. And the E8's dual curved design does make it at least as comfortable in the hand, even though it does make tabletop use a bit more wobbly. Some folks think the E8's camera automatically outclasses the M8's camera because of the megapixel gap, which we grant you is significant. But the E8's camera is the same module found in HTC's One Mini 2, which has faced off against the M8 in another comparison, and it didn't turn out too well for the One Mini 2, despite the added resolution. The same is true here. This has nothing to do with the M8's Duo sensor, whose faux bokeh photos can easily be replicated with an app like Google Camera. And we also don't think many will care too much about the downgrade in the LED flash. Rather, this is about color, sharpness, and low-light performance, all areas in which the M8 beats the pants off the E8. Yes, the E8's photos are much higher in resolution, so if it's zoomability you're after, the M8 is not the choice for you. But the E8's photos are flat, washed out, and dull, while the metal machine offers much more vibrant colors and sharper results, without crossing the line and looking overprocessed. The M8 also has the edge over the E8 in shutter speed, and low-light performance is no contest, regardless of whether night mode is on or off on either phone. And finally, the M8 offers greater field of view, so you can fit more into each frame, something which surprisingly goes for the front-facing camera as well. We'll have thoughts on the E8's video performance in our full review, but the wide and tight of the camera angle is this. Unless you place resolution above literally every other aspect of a smartphone camera, the One M8 is the superior choice here. The E8 does get a chance to shine in other areas, notably Wi-Fi reception, where it slightly edges out the M8. It's also more comfortable to hold for longer periods of intense gaming or other high-demand activities, as the plastic shell doesn't get nearly as hot as the M8's aluminum cladding. And oddly, the E8's display is also slightly easier to see through sunglasses. If those seem like small distinctions, well, they are. And everywhere else, from voice quality, good, to battery life, good, to the slick and responsive Android build, great. The E8 and M8 are right on par, just as you'd expect from smartphones which are supposed to be so similar. So if you already own a One M8, is the One E8 a device you should be drooling over? Unless you really like plastic over metal, no, we don't think so. From its industrial design to its camera performance, on the front and the back, we very much prefer the One M8. But the E8 wasn't made to lure people away from its metallic counterpart. It was made to deliver a similar experience at a lesser price point. And that, it does quite well. As to how well it does on its own, as a complete package, you'll have to wait for our full review, coming soon.